Hello honeybees, my name is Raven, this is October, that's Jasper, and welcome back to our channel. Subscribe to become part of the hive. Be sure to like and ring the notification bell. Thanks honeybees. Enjoy the video. Meow. I say bye-bye. Bye-bye. Ooh, what do you say? P for Papa's. It's a Papa's party. Okay, you can go back. You can go back to sleep. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Recently I posted a gaming video where I was playing a couple early 2000s Spider-Man games, just like in preparation for the new Spiderverse. I know I wasn't playing the Miles Morales games, but I wanted to just like look at the classics of Spider-Man, you know, because there's a lot of Spider-Man games out there, and, you know, maybe I'll play more in the future, but that's beside the point. This isn't about gaming, okay? The point is, I saw Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse recently, just a couple of days ago, and I wanted to kind of talk about it, but I don't really specifically want to talk about the movie itself, just because we already know a third one is going to come out. It's going to be like a trilogy. There might be more beyond it, but from what it seems like right now, there's going to be a nice complete little trilogy that maybe they'll add on to more after that. So I really want to talk about the trilogy when that happens. So like when it comes out next year, Beyond the Spider-Verse, supposedly next year. Hopefully it doesn't get delayed. But I would like to talk about the first three, Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, Beyond the Spider-Verse, all together, where I really get into the plot and the character arcs across all three movies. And I kind of just want to wait and do that all at once. So for this video, instead of really just talking about Across the Spider-Verse, I kind of want to talk about multiverse in general. There's been a lot of movies lately in the past couple of years that have explored the multiverse, specifically Marvel movies for sure, like Marvel animation, Marvel live action. They really just delved into this whole multiverse theory of like all these different superheroes and different dimensions of superheroes, and kind of how their like canons are like similar, but also how they differ in these different universes, and kind of what makes that hero, or that person, and what like key points in their story are like the same across multiple dimensions. So that's specifically, but obviously there's also some like non-superhero movies that do that. Everything Everywhere All at Once is a multiverse movie that kind of has a different take on it. There's definitely multiple different takes you could have about how the multiverse works, because nothing can be proven, really, right? So you have creative freedom. Even if something was proven, there's always creative freedoms about certain theories and stories and things like that, right? So I want to really talk about that in general, and I will talk about Across the Spider-Verse a little bit, just to kind of hone in on my point about the multiverse and what this movie says about it that is very similar to other superhero films. And not just Marvel, DC does this as well. I know the Flash movie is coming out pretty soon. I don't know if it'll be out by the time I get this video up, but there's multiverse in that as well. That seems very similar to the formula of other superhero movies, in that the person doubles themselves. So they're one person, they go to a universe and meet their version of themselves in the other universe. That seems to be like the popular theory in superhero, like how the multiverse works, essentially. You know what I'm saying? I'll get more into it. But Across the Spider-Verse was a good movie. I really loved Into the Spider-Verse. I saw it multiple times in theaters. I saw it after it came out. It was on Netflix for a bit, so I watched it again. A really good movie, really inspiring, you know, that kind of everybody can be a hero moral lesson that we've seen before, but I really liked the way that this one was portrayed. And it was more of a low-key kind of superhero movie that wasn't about like big action scenes, destroying the city, saving the world kind of thing. It was mostly about Miles discovering his own power. And yes, there was a major threat of like the multiverse like breaking and destroying everything, and other spider people coming in from other universes. Like, yes, that's like definitely a grand threat, but that really wasn't like the whole plot of the movie. It was mostly Miles discovering his own Spider-Man, and how he doesn't have to like conform to what everyone else thinks Spider-Man is, because he is his own person. He can be his own Spider-Man, you know, and obviously there's some similarities, but he needed to find a way to find himself in that hero, right? And just that idea that a lot of other superhero movies have kind of tried to address as like someone being thrown into this hero role, and how they choose to adapt to that role. Like you don't have a choice, essentially. And you can use your powers for good or you can use them for bad, because if you don't use them, that's kind of using them for bad, because you could be using them for the greater good, So that whole idea, and that movie, Into the Spider-Verse, even though it was set up for a sequel at the end, in itself, it is a full, complete movie with character development, with arcs, with a conclusion, a satisfying conclusion at the end. So you can watch the whole film and feel complete, feel satisfied. The story is over. There is definitely space for more story, but how it was framed in this movie, this plot is done and can be further developed later. But for now, it's good. It's done for now, and then it set it up at the end that he would see Gwen again. And so that's how we knew Across the Spider-Verse was going to happen. But we didn't obviously people wanted it. We didn't need it though, because Into the Spider-Verse, its own complete, amazing movie that everybody loved. It looked gorgeous. All the characters are really interesting, bringing in all these different Spider-Man from different comics and cartoons and things like that, and exploring how they were all similar but different, so that Miles could kind of find his place among all of that. Now, Across the Spider-Verse keeps a lot of those themes, right? Mainly of Miles becoming his own Spider-Man and breaking out of the parts that he doesn't want to have, that he doesn't want to be the same and have the same story as every single Spider-Man just because it's canon, which is the movie's kind of way. It says canon. We know what canon is. It's the things that absolutely have to happen, that have happened, that need to happen. It's fate, basically. It's destiny. It's your destiny. These things happen to make you Spider-Man. These things shape who you are as Spider-Man. And every hero has their canon. Every character has their canon, right? It's destiny. Things that are meant to happen.
Miles, there's chapters that are a part of every Spider story every time. No! You have a choice between saving one person and saving an entire world, every world.
And in Across the Spider-Verse, Miles questions that. Obviously, he had the same canon as all the other Peter Parker's, Gwen Stacy's as Spider-Man, all the other Spider people, where they have their uncle die. Uncle Ben, usually for him it was his Uncle Aaron, who is also Prowler, and something similar to that, a close family member, usually an uncle. Sometimes it's Aunt May, it might be something else, but it's all very similar. And that already happened to him. Another part of the canon that this movie addresses is that a police captain close to Spider-Man dies saving a child from a falling building. That's happened across multiple Spider people canon. I believe it's happened in The Amazing Spider-Man, because in a lot of Spider-Man canon, Gwen Stacy's dad is a police captain. Miles, his dad is a police captain. So that person has to die to further the story of Spider-Man. It's a moment of proving that you can't save everybody at the same time. And that's illustrated in this movie when they go to the universe of Indian Spider-Man, because let me just say, okay, if you haven't seen the movie, don't watch this video, but because it'll be a lot easier to know what I'm talking about, because like I said, I'm not going to really get too much into the movie itself. But in it, the multiverse is opened back up. There's way more Spider people. One of the Spider people, his name is Miguel, voiced by Oscar Isaac. He kind of developed this technology for all these Spider people to jump through different universes. And if there's any anomaly or a person who's in a universe they're not supposed to be in, they grab them, put them back to their own universe. And he just kind of puts together a team of different Spider people across multiple different universes to kind of make sure that everything in every universe goes as planned, how it's supposed to, that the canon stays intact, right? That's kind of his job, and he set up that task force to do that. So Gwen Stacy, Spider-Woman, who we met in Into the Spider-Verse, Miles' friend, is a part of this team. Things are not really going great for her in her own universe. She was exposed as Spider-Woman to her dad. She kind of exposed herself. She didn't really have a choice. He tried to arrest her. She didn't have friends or anything like that. So she decided to just leave her universe and join this task force with a bunch of other cool Spider people. And she goes and sees Miles. Miles wants to be a part of this task force. They tell him no. He kind of goes along anyway. They end up in the universe of Indian Spider-Man. And he is having a canon moment, Indian Spider-Man, Pavatir Padakar. I might not be pronouncing that correctly. I'm so sorry. But he is having his moment because he's early on in his Spider-Man career. He's having a moment where he can either save his girlfriend or his girlfriend's father, who is a police captain, trying to save a kid from getting crushed by a building. And he's saying, I can save both. I can do it. I can save both. Obviously, he can't. But because Miles is there, he obviously tries to do the right thing. And he saves the police captain while Indian Spider-Man is able to save his girlfriend. And this disrupts the canon. And that's how Miles kind of discovers what canon is and how he is meant to have this same fate, the same destiny. And of course, the police captain in his life is his father, who is about to be sworn in as police captain. So obviously he wants to get back to his universe and stop this and disrupt the canon. But the idea of disrupting the canon being dangerous is introduced because Indian Spider-Man's universe, because his canon was disrupted, is starting to like fall apart. Okay, it's like black matter is coming out and all the other Spider people are trying to contain it. So on the one hand, there's this whole idea of like choosing your own destiny. That's what we got kind of in the first movie, that's being continued in this one, and how other people can't dictate your story. Miles wants to do his own thing. He says that all the other Spider people are trying to stop him from disrupting his own canon because obviously he does not want his father to die just because it's meant to happen, right? Like I would do the same thing. Like, who are you to tell me what is meant to happen in my own life? Just because I'm Spider-Man doesn't mean I need to have all these same beats that all the same Spider people have. Like I don't need that to be a hero. I don't need to have these tragedies to be this hero. And that's kind of what Miles is saying here. But then there's also the idea that if he does disrupt the canon, all hell breaks loose. His universe could fall apart. So their whole point is you could save this one person or you could save all these other people. Like, what are you going to choose?
You have a choice between saving one person and saving an entire world, every world.
And Miles's point, which wasn't really, it's probably going to be more in later, in the next movie, is, well, why do I have to choose? That's kind of the whole thing. It's like, let me choose my own fate. I don't think fate should be decided for me.
Everyone keeps telling me how my story is supposed to go. Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing.
Which is really interesting. The issue is with this multiverse theory is, okay, well then what is destiny? Because if something is meant to happen, it will happen one way or another. Kind of like I guess a good example might be the Final Destination films. If someone is meant to die and they disrupt their own fate, first of all, is that not part of fate that it got disrupted? Because if it was meant to happen, it would have happened.
If he was pulling at the wire, he wasn't trying to kill himself. It was an accident.
In death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no escapes. What you have to realize is that we're all just a mouse that a cat has by the tail. Every single move we make, from the mundane to the monumental, the red light that we stop at or run, the people we have sex with or won't with us, the airplanes that we ride or walk out of. It's all part of death's sadistic design, leading to the grave.
The people who disrupted their fate, who were supposed to die in a certain situation but didn't, death is now after them. You're supposed to be dead right now, so I'm going to kill you in a different way, and you cannot stop it. And most of the time, most of the characters in the Final Destination movies could not stop it. They do end up dying because they're supposed to, right? Fate is fate. Fate will happen. Destiny will come for you. There's really no way to defy that forever, as far as that theory goes.
The path of the explosion determined the order of our deaths, right? But when I intervened and saved Carter, it skipped him and went to the next person on the path that went to Billy. All right, and then it was clear. But I intervened and saved her, so it went to me. But in my case, no one intervened, right? I was thrown from that power line by the explosion. So
why did it skip you, right?
How do we know that this isn't exactly what was meant to happen? That out of everyone on Flight 180, you, me, and Carter were meant to live. Maybe that was the design all along.
Or you could still be next. I told you were next.
And it just skipped me.
So who's next?
As far as like canon and destiny being the same thing, I guess it's not really, because what happens when you defy canon? It's no longer canon, right? So there's a little bit of confusion there for me. I guess what I'm saying is I was left with a lot of questions at the end of this film, but also it was left at a pretty big cliffhanger. And I know like a lot of people have that same problem, that it ends with such a huge cliffhanger, because cliffhangers are okay. They're fine, but we literally left our hero, our main character, in the middle of an extremely dangerous situation, and his resolve of trying to save his father, like, he hasn't been able to do that yet. He has to escape this one very dangerous situation before he can even do that, and all the spider people are after him, and Gwen Stacy puts together this task force to save him, but we leave her at putting together the task force. We don't know what they're going to do yet, how they're going to save him, how Miles is going to get out of this situation. He runs into other Miles from another universe. Because we find out that the spider that bit Miles was not from his universe. That was part of, in the beginning of the movie, when they're experimenting with the multiverse and taking things from other universes, a spider from a different universe came and bit Miles. He was never supposed to be Spider-Man. So he already kind of defied the canon, that if he hadn't become Spider-Man, the Spider-Man in his universe wouldn't have died. And now, whoever that spider was supposed to bite in its own universe did not become Spider-Man. So now there's a universe without a Spider-Man. And the Miles in that universe becomes a villain. Now, I have a lot of questions about this too, just because Multiverse is messy, right? It leaves you with a lot of questions. Like I said, it is a theory, so there's a lot of stuff you can do with it, but there's also a lot of like open interpretation for like, and there's a lot of like open opportunity for like plot holes, right? Like, how are you going to answer every question? So if canon is canon, Miles already defied the canon by becoming Spider-Man. So who's to say that he has to hit every point of Spider-Man canon when he wasn't supposed to be Spider-Man in the first place? So do you just, like, if you become Spider-Man, even if you're not supposed to be Spider-Man, suddenly destiny shifts and everything that has happened to different spider people has to happen to you? Like, does that make any sense? Because if he wasn't meant to be Spider-Man, why does he have to abide by Spider-Man canon? Why do all these things have to happen to him, right? If it wasn't even supposed to happen in the first place. And the same with his universe where his spider came out. Someone in that universe was meant to become Spider-Man. It was meant to be canon, but it didn't happen. So how concrete is canon? That universe did not fall apart. That universe isn't sinking into black matter just because the person who was meant to be Spider-Man didn't become Spider-Man. Yes, it's not the best universe. There's a lot of like crime because there is not a Spider-Man. But first of all, there's probably other superheroes. This universe of Into the Spiderverse, these films do not deny the existence of other superheroes. So I don't know why other heroes couldn't save New York, but specifically Spider-Man is supposed to, save New York. Maybe other heroes are in other places. That's fine. That's whatever. So in this universe, there's like, more villain takeovers. There's more like crime than there is in Miles's universe. So because there's not a Spider-Man, but if that Spider-Man was meant to be Spider-Man, he would become Spider-Man one way or another. At least I would think so. Like if that's canon, and I've told previously in the film, if you break out of canon, your universe falls apart. This universe has not fallen apart. So which is it? I'm a little bit confused on that. At what parts of the canon absolutely has to happen or the universe falls apart, and what parts are a little bit more flexible and won't destroy the universe? What are the rules there? And perhaps, like I said, we'll delve a lot more into it and beyond the Spider-Verse. Hopefully, I mean, it's set up to be like, if they do resolve everything and start with this cliffhanger, because it's set up for what seems like a really big battle with like a lot of discovery, a lot more like more character stuff as well. It just seems like it's going to start really strong, and then maybe the rest of the movie will kind of like explain these different points and resolve everything and put everything in a neat little bow. That's what I'm hoping for. So hopefully, potentially, all my questions that I have been left with Across the Spider-Verse will be answered in Beyond the Spider-Verse. My only problem and why I cannot say that Beyond the Spider-Verse is as good as Into the Spider-Verse is because I am left with all these questions. And it is not a complete film. I cannot watch it and feel completely satisfied because I am left with these questions. And that is maybe purposeful. I'm sure it is, especially with such a big cliffhanger. Obviously they want you to watch the next movie, but I can't not dock points away from that, because when I watch a movie, I want to see a complete story. And there's a way, like I was saying, to have a complete story and set it up for a sequel. And if I like what you showed me, I will definitely see the sequel. Right? That's exactly what happened with the first one. I really liked it. I knew they were going to have a sequel. Of course I'm going to watch it because the first one was good. I feel like the second one's probably going to be good too. And it was, don't get me wrong. Again, the visuals were great. I loved all the characters. I really liked the spider people. A lot of them were very charming. Everyone likes, I've heard on like Twitter and stuff, everyone's really loving Spider-Punk. I liked him too. I liked Indian Spider-Man. We got to know more about Gwen, Miguel, who's trying to be a hero, but also like kind of is the villain, which is interesting, an interesting idea that everybody is a hero, but some of the heroes are the antagonists. Because just because you're an antagonist doesn't mean you are a villain, right? And just because you are a protagonist doesn't mean you are the hero. It's not so black and white. So that was really interesting, and I was entertained the whole time. The movie is over 2 hours long. I never got bored. That's a big problem with me when movies are really long, is at some point I do really start to feel the runtime. I didn't feel it with this. And in a way, I am happy that they didn't like complete the storyline in this way, because then they would have rushed a lot of the plot, so I do appreciate it for that. But at the same time, like I said, like I'm probably not going to rewatch this one just because I know I'm not going to be satisfied in the end, and I'm going to have all these sort of questions that will probably be answered in the next one, but that remains to be seen, right? So, but really about the multiverse in this universe, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, specifically the Into the Spider-Verse version of this cinematic universe, all these different universes, when you hop to a different one, there's another version of you there, right? And from what I've seen of the Flash trailer, there is another version of you there. So you can use the multiverse, or at least potentially what a lot of people have tried to do with the multiverse is when something happens in their universe, like they lose their family or something bad happens, they can hop to a different universe where that didn't happen and live there. The only problem is there's their other version of their self there, right? So they might have to like kill their other version, or maybe they go to a different universe where their version of themselves is already dead. The problem is they took themselves out of their own universe, so now like the canon and everything that happens in that universe is all messed up because you're not there anymore, and there's just problems with someone being in the wrong universe. All these Spider-Man, like, they glitch when they're in the wrong universe, and they're not wearing their like protective little multiverse bracelets. So there's a whole bunch of problems there, and the canon, the fate, the destiny, right, of the universe you hopped into is now screwed up because you're not supposed to be there. You're not supposed to be living this life, and so things eventually fall apart.
Inspector Singh's death was a canon event. It's what happens when you break the canon.
How do you know?
Because I broke it once myself. I found another world where I had a family, where I was happy. That's the version of me was. It's never right, Peter. Believe me,
I have tried.
That's an interesting idea. Like, if it's not meant to happen, it's not going to happen. But again, that has its own problems, because if Miles was not meant to be Spider-Man, then why is he Spider-Man, right? Whole thing. there's a little bit of plot holes here, and maybe it's more nuanced than that. Maybe it's not as black as white as I'm making it. I'm sure it's a lot more complicated than that, and they'll probably get into it. But there's a lot of other universes that have this kind of like same version of the multiverse. So like in the Flash trailer, I'm probably not going to see the movie. I don't usually care about superhero movies, and I don't really ever choose to see them. Into the Spiderverse, just the first one's an anomaly because it was really good. And so I wanted to see the second one. But I don't care for DC movies at all. But in the Flash trailer, it's kind of the same idea, where Barry, he, in his universe that he exists in, his parents are dead. So he wants to, the trailer is a little bit weird, because part of it is he wants to like go back in time, but also he is going into a different universe. So maybe in going back in time, he actually ends up in a different universe. I don't know. But it definitely seems multiversey, because there's like multiple Batman. There's the Batman in his universe, which is Ben Affleck, but then there's Batman in a different universe, which is Michael Keaton, and they're both there, so it can't be time travel, right? It has to be multiverse. And he goes into a universe where his parents are still alive, but runs into himself from that universe. So now there's two Barrys, there's two The Flashes, and they have to deal with that. Obviously, they can't both live in that same universe, right? Because they're the same person. That's probably just not going to work. Now, I don't know if that means that that universe is going to fall apart because there's two Barrys, or if there is a way for them both to simultaneously exist and everyone gets everything that they want. I doubt it, because it never really happens that way, right? This whole theory of the multiverse, of when you go into a different multiverse, there's another version of you there. That seems to be like the most popular way the multiverse is portrayed, because that's how it was portrayed in Spider-Man No Way Home. All the different spider people, came into Tom Holland's Spider-Man universe. So they were all able to simultaneously exist at once in the universe, right? And they're villains as well. And they actually very much disrupted the canon, because they're like a big part of the plot of that movie was fixing the villains to stop them from being villains, because most of these villains had already died. So they took like the earlier versions of them from the universe before they died, or even like became super evil, and prevented that from happening, right? With Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin and Doc Ock. They kind of like fixed what the problem was that made them evil, so they wouldn't be evil anymore, and then like sent them back, which probably monstrously disrupted each of the universes, but they didn't really address that part of it. I guess it's just kind of like these problems can be solved, and it doesn't matter that that disrupts the canon. But also, like, what is canon? Like, what parts of my life are canon? Is it only the big events, like the death of Uncle Ben and the death of the police chief and being bit by the spider? Where is the line of what is and is not canon? What is meant to happen and what is not meant to happen, right? Because if everything is just meant to happen, then why does Spider-Man even try? It's just going to happen, right? You either save them or you don't, because if it's canon, it's canon. So I have a lot of confusion there as well. But maybe I'm just thinking too deeply about it. That is something that I do. I definitely way overanalyze these things, and I'm probably not supposed to think this deeply about it. But I would like to know what constitutes canon, what constitutes something that absolutely has to happen or the universe falls apart, right? Because obviously for Miles, it wasn't like not becoming Spider-Man. It wasn't like the Peter Parker in his universe dying didn't make anything fall apart. So obviously it wasn't canon that he lived. So, and it wasn't canon that Miles didn't become Spider-Man, because he did. And anyway, I'm rambling. This is more of a rant for sure. I didn't mean for it to be. Yeah. So in Far From Home, they are able to like fix things in the different universe and send them back. And so a lot of the stuff that happened in those universe and those other movies with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield potentially ended up not ever happening, because they fixed it before it could happen. Or maybe when they got sent back, all those problems just manifested in a different way because those people were meant to be villains. It's canon that they were villains. Or maybe the universe is completely changed after that. Who knows? They didn't really show that part of it. They did show Tom Holland's Peter becoming pretty much just like every other Peter at the end of it, where everyone forgets that he's Spider-Man and he loses MJ and his friends. He lost Aunt May, and so he is alone, poor, in a New York apartment, which is, you know, where Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was for a lot of it. He's alone in his apartment, just struggling Peter Parker. You know, there's a version of Peter Parker, the older version of Peter Parker, in the Into the Spiderverse movies. I guess that's just generally a part of Spider-Man's story where he has to struggle somehow. You know, he's just a kid struggling in New York at some point, and then maybe he gets better later. Maybe he doesn't. Depends on the universe, right? There's a bunch of different things that you could do with Spider-Man, and we saw that in Across the Spider-Verse. There's a bunch of different versions, a bunch of different ways the story could go, but the same core points. Which also I want to say, does everybody have a canon, or is it just, I don't think it's just Spider-Man that has to have this canon or the universe falls apart. It might be a superhero thing, but why would it just be superheroes? Like, do I have a canon that absolutely has to happen? Like, the same, is there a me in other universes? And we all have to hit, like, the same major points to be me for my story to happen, you know what I mean? Is it just, because otherwise it's just the idea that superheroes are really, really special people and they hold the balance of the world in their hands, which kind of detracts from the kind of thesis statement of Into the Spider-Verse that anybody can be a hero. Anybody can be Spider-Man, but anybody can be a hero, right? Well, that's not particularly true in the case that you can only be Spider-Man if your life hits these particular points. And I feel like that's probably the point Miles is going to make more in the next one. Like, I thought anybody could be a hero. Why can I only be a hero if my police captain father dies? Why can I only be a hero if my uncle dies? Why can't I, you know, be a hero and live my own life and choose my own destiny? Because that's what we learned in the first one. The second one retracted from that, and then maybe we'll get it back in the third. Who knows? Anyway, I also wanted to touch a little bit on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Because this one wasn't the first one to do, like, the multiverse, but this was around the time that all the multiverse stuff was happening when this Doctor Strange came out, and they were really messy with it. I mean, that movie, I'm not even sure what that movie was about. There was a lot of shit going on, and Doctor Strange goes into a lot of different universes and multiverses, and he really disrupts shit a lot. He goes into a universe where there's this, like, council of heroes, right? Where the version of himself in that universe has already died. So he enters it, not supposed to be there. That doesn't rip space-time continuum, except they don't introduce the idea that being in the wrong universe can rip the space-time continuum. Not every movie with multiverse does that, right? But he's there, and there's this like high council of heroes. There's Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four. There's Charles Xavier. There's this guy who, like, says something and can explode you with his voice, and then there's, like, somebody else. I don't remember specifically, but when he's in that universe, Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, finds him and ends up, like, killing everybody on that high council. So how does that disrupt their universe, that their high council of heroes is now dead because a Wanda from a different universe killed them? I bet that universe fell apart after that, which would have been interesting to see, a cool idea to explore. But that movie chose not to do that, and we just followed this one Doctor Strange as he hopped into different universes and probably majorly disrupted them. And they did kind of introduce that Doctor Strange has his own canon, because in every universe, the version of himself loves Rachel McAdams. And in pretty much every universe, he messes it up, and they end up not together. So the fact that he doesn't get with Rachel McAdams, is that part of his canon and absolutely has to happen? I don't know. But obviously they didn't explore the idea of how the multiverses actually work and what happens when you disrupt them very much. And that's maybe part of why the movie was not so well received, because they could have made it a lot more interesting than it was. They, in my opinion, they explored the wrong concepts. Now, they did explore it a little bit with the Scarlet Witch, with Wanda, because she does jump into a universe where her children that don't actually exist, because she wants to be a mom so bad, because she made up this whole world where she does have children in the show WandaVision, which I didn't see because I think it's stupid to have to watch a whole series just to understand what's going on with a character in a movie. Like, that's dumb. That's why I don't like movies that end with cliffhangers, because now, if I want to complete the story, I have to watch another movie, and at that point, it's not a movie, it's a miniseries. So... Anyway, yeah, so she jumps into a universe where her sons exist and wants to take over as their mom, but the problem is the Wanda in that universe exists, and so she either has to kill that version of herself, or I don't know what the other option is, because I don't think they're both going to exist, and that Wanda is going to agree to let the other Wanda help raise her children. Right? Like, having two twin moms that are the same person, but also this one's more evil. That's just not going to work. And they did introduce that, like, you can't do that. But not in a way that, like, if you did kill this other version of yourself and took over for her, like, the universe would fall apart. She probably could potentially do that. But, you know, she is a different person because she had a different history. Her life has been really different up to this point. She can't just jump right in to where this Wanda is at her life and take over. It's just not going to work ethically, at least, for sure, right? And so she ended up, like, coming to terms with that and didn't do that. Because really the main problem was that she couldn't come to terms with the fact that she had lost Vision, her love, and did not have her children, right? That she had created in her brain. And now she can't ever really have them unless she jumps into a different universe, because there's no way for that version of her to have these children now, the same ones at least. So that was an interesting idea that they really could have explored more, that Into the Spiderverse, Across the Spiderverse does explore more, except they added on to that the universe will literally fall apart if you disrupt it so extremely. Yeah, that's a really popular, like, theory, and just like the nuance of it, and what could and can't go wrong, and what you can and cannot disrupt is just a little bit confusing. And I really hope that they do explore it in Beyond the Spider-Verse, because they've already done a better job at kind of exploring the nuances of changing universes than other Marvel movies that I've seen, like I just mentioned. But also, I feel like there's just inherently a lot of issues and unresolved and unanswered questions with multiverse theory in general. So are they gonna, like, create new ideas, continue to create new ideas to answer those questions? Or are there just some things that are always gonna be unanswered, right? I'm interested to see where they go with it. And I'm not saying you have to answer every question, but, you know, if you're gonna explore certain concepts, there has to be at least an attempt to explain these concepts. So I really hope they do that further in the next ones. But also, like, I don't feel like multiverse films all have to follow the same formula, which so far they have, except, again, for Everything Everywhere All at Once. In that movie, I think the part of the reason it did very, very well was how it handled multiverse theory. Because when our main character, when she is kind of jumping through multiverses, she's not actually herself jumping through multiverses. It's more her consciousness is jumping through each version of herself in different multiverses and inhabiting the version of herself in that universe. So her consciousness, so it's not like a double of herself entering that universe and now there's two hers. The wrong universe and the correct universe version, right? It's her consciousness in that new self that she jumped into and can now see that universe through her other version's eyes and adopt that version of herself's knowledge and ability and, past that led to where she is, and then take all that and use it for her real self in her own universe, right? She can kind of jump through, like, she needs to fight somebody, so she has to find a version of herself in a different universe that knows how to fight. So she jumps through it consciously in her mind, finds a version of herself that became like a star martial arts fighter who like fights in movies and stuff like that. is able to kind of like quickly run through her history as that person in that universe and adopt her skills that she had learned on the different trajectory that her life went, and then come back to her universe she's supposed to be in, where she has to fight and use those skills, right? That was really, really interesting and cool, because in this case, in that theory, there's really no way to really disrupt that other universe so heavily. Like, she can kind of, like, her consciousness can go into another universe and for a second kind of like mess up what's supposed to happen, because she's like, what's going on? What's happening, you know? But there's really no way for her to like destroy it, because there's no doubling happening. It's still her. It's her in every single universe, and she's being her in every single universe, even if she doesn't have the same past or present as that other version of herself. They've all made different choices to get to different points, right? But at the end of the day, it is still her, and just an alternate version of something she did or did not do that led to a different outcome. And that's super interesting. It's not just like, this is you if you were a woman or a man. This is you if you lived here. This is you if you had this power. Like, it's based off of different decisions that she made that led her to different outcomes, right? There's a version of her where she decided to not marry her husband because her parents told her not to. And so she had a completely different path because of that. Whereas the original version that we are seeing, she chose to stay with her husband against her parents' wishes. There's another version of her where she sustained a certain injury, and that kind of affected the trajectory of her life. One where she decided to pursue acting, one where she, pursue cooking, things like that, and how different her life was because of these small or major changes. And in the Spider-Man universe, they don't say that it is, they don't really, and not just the Spider-Man, in the Marvel universe, that's not really how they explain multiverse theory of why these universes are different based on like choices and things that happened. It's just, there's a whole bunch of different versions of you. In one of them you have these powers for some reason, and one of them you don't have these powers for some reason. And it's just, I really liked the way that Everything Everywhere All at Once kind of explained the multiverse and how that might work. Now, if she was a superhero, if that was a superhero movie where she was a hero, maybe it'd be similar, because maybe in this universe you have these powers for some reason. I don't know. I just really like the way that they explained it in a more down-to-earth and easy to understand fashion. But I feel like the most like popular like multiverse theory is just the idea that you can jump into other universes, and it's often used because like the person who wants to jump into a different universe does not like their own, usually because they like lost a family member, or they just like messed up so grandly they just can't live in that universe anymore. I mean, they've literally done the same thing in Rick and Morty, right? Not to bring up Rick and Morty, but they also have multiverse theory, and they have very popular theories. There's that one episode where Morty where Morty kind of like fucks up so badly that now his universe has entered this like irreversible apocalypse situation that he just can't fix. So Rick is like, you know what, let's just jump into a different universe that is very, very similar to our own, and we'll just live as ourselves in that universe. And they happen to find a universe very, very similar to their own, with like the same structure basically, but where the versions of themselves died in an accident. So they were able to jump into that universe, bury the other versions of themselves, and then just live as if nothing happened, right? And leave their old universe behind.
Here we are.
Oh my god, Rick! Is that us? We're dead! What is going on, Rick? I'm freaking out!
Calm down, Morty. Look at me. Calm down, Morty. Shut up and listen to me. It's fine. Everything is fine. There's an infinite number of realities, Morty. And in a few dozen of those, I got lucky and turned everything back to normal. I just had to find one of those realities in which we also happen to both die around this time. Now we can just slip into the place of our dead selves in this reality, and everything will be fine. We're not skipping a beat, Morty.
Rick! What about the reality we left behind?
What about the reality where Hitler cured cancer, Morty? The answer is don't think about it.
Which has its own consequences. The worlds did not fall apart, but Morty kind of fell apart internally over time, just trying to come to terms with the fact that he's supposed to be dead in that universe. And there's this whole other universe that he's known his whole life that is fallen to pieces, and he's not there, and he'll never see that version of his family again that he has known his whole life, or his friends, or anything like that. And these people that he lives with now are not really his family. And there's an internal struggle there, which is interesting, introducing the internal struggle of, which, not to praise Rick and Morty, but because Justin Roiland's a piece of shit, but the show has had interesting ideas in the past before, and some of them ended up being ruined, but this isn't about that, right? But I do really like the idea of the internal struggle of skipping universes, which I feel like I really would like to be addressed more in these different metaverse, multiverse kind of things, right? Like, yeah, it might fall apart because of you're not meant to be there. It falls apart in like a canon, destiny, fate sort of way. But what about you? How do you feel about being in the wrong universe? How do you internally struggle with knowing that this wasn't supposed to happen and you're forcing it to happen? Or this is supposed to happen and there's no way to prevent it other than like going to a different universe and changing it. Like, how does that make you feel, and how are you going to deal with that within yourself, right? I would love to explore that a little bit more in not just like beyond the Spiderverse, but just multiverse movies moving forward, because they're not going to stop. It's become very, very popular. You know, you run out of stuff to do with your character, so what do? You pull from characters of another universe and you combine them with ones we already know. Like, we're done. We have nothing else to say about, and this isn't about Into the Spider-Verse because it started as a multiverse thing, right? But like Marvel movies, DC movies, other kind of movies in general, we've run out of stuff to do with this character, so let's bring in other characters from different versions and just have them meet and do something there, right? We run out of stuff to do about Spider-Man. We've done everything, so let's bring in Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. Let's bring in Andrew Garfield Spider-Man and have them interact and have them defeat each other's villains and stuff like that. What else can we do with Doctor Strange? I don't know. Let's just throw him in a bunch of different universes, and the main appeal of the movie will be seeing different heroes and different stories in different universes, because we run out of stuff to do. You know, that's just what it feels like, right? That's just what it feels like to me in these portrayals, right? And there's a way that you can do the multiverse and be like interesting and have it not feel like you ran out of ideas and you're just saying like, oh my god, look at all these different versions. Oh, I recognize that. Oh, that's from the comics, you know. There's a way you can do it without the whole appeal being, oh, cool, so many different spider people, so many different Doctor Stranges. Oh my god, Mr. Fantastic, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I'm gonna, you know what? I'm sorry if you're looking for a more detailed analysis or review of Across the Spider-Verse. All in all, like, it was a good movie. I do kind of have a problem with how big the cliffhanger was, but I'm not saying that like the story itself like was completely left open. There were some arcs that were completed that can continue to be added more onto, but that, you know, were somewhat satisfying for happening over the course of the film. And like I said, they had a lot of ideas that really would have felt rushed if they did complete it in one film, but you know, ups and downs. I can't fully complain, but I'm not fully satisfied either, you know? But, you know, there were a few things, like with Gwen in the beginning where she started out, like I mentioned, she started out, like, being ostracized, like, from her dad. She didn't have any friends. She was depressed. And then by the end of the film, you know, she had her own crew together of, like, like-minded spider people who she really got along with. And so she kind of, like, she had, like, a found family situation, and that was really nice. Miles had some of his own development that obviously will develop further, where he just continued to realize that he wants to do his own thing and pick his own destiny. Some major discoveries were made about how Miles, you know, was not meant to be Spider-Man and how he is going to deal with that internally and externally. That's really interesting, and that was cool to introduce, and I can't wait to see them go further with that. You know, so it wasn't all incomplete. I'm not saying it was, like, incomplete, but it was a lot of stuff was left open. And I want to see how they close it all, or will they do the same thing where they close some of it but then open it up for a next one and a next one and a next one? Like, when will the story end and leave us so that we can open up maybe a brand new story, right? So I'm just really interested to see it. I will definitely see it. I will definitely talk about all three if it feels like a completed trilogy. Even if it's not, I'll probably talk about it anyway. So, but we'll see. We'll see next year. I'll see ya when we talk about Beyond the Spider-Verse next year. But until then, I'm gonna stop my multiverse rambling for now. If you made it through this whole video, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. You know, I'll have more movie content, more reviews, like actual reviews, out pretty soon. Got a lot of great summer movies coming up that I'm excited to see and talk about. Some more series videos in the works that I'm excited about. So, stay tuned for those. Until then, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.